Hi everyone, back with another movie review, and today it's Solo, a Star Wars story. And wow, we've got a lot to unpack here. This is a very strange beast of a film, and we're just going to do the usual thing, which is quick thing, whether you should go see it or not, which is a harder question than it might seem. Then I'll talk a little bit about the film, and then we can unpack a lot in spoilers. So the usual thing that I go through is, should you go see this film at all? Should you go see it in the cinema, or should you just wait for DVD? Well, this is what I call a Schrodinger's film. Now, if you've ever heard of the Schrodinger's cat, it's where a cat in the famous physics thought experiment is, due to quantum mechanics, both alive and dead simultaneously. And that's the same for Solo. If you are the type of person who just goes to the films, goes to the cinema, loves Star Wars, and really just enjoys a film, it washes over them, they're not worried by, wow, that doesn't make sense, or is that really good storytelling or whatever, then I think you're going to enjoy this film. It's really quite solid, old-fashioned storytelling. And here's a quick test. If when you watch the Indiana Jones films and you watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there's a scene at the beginning with River Phoenix in which in about 5 minutes they explain all this Indiana Jones kind of lore. If you don't mind that, then you are going to really like Solo, because everything that you know about Han Solo is looked at in this film. You know, how he met Chewie and how he did the Kessel Run and all that. However, this film to me has a lot of problems, but I enjoyed it when I was in the cinema. I just kind of parked my brain and went, wow, that shouldn't have happened. But I still enjoyed all the interplay. So my view is, if you're the kind of person who really just lets a film wash over them, go see this. If you're not, then you probably need to see it just to be part of the cultural dialogue. But if you're not in a rush, you could probably see it on DVD. Okay, I'm going to come back and we'll get into it. Wow. So this film has history. And normally it's like, oh, this person doesn't like this person. This is a real story about making movies at this time in history, because famously a couple things hit. George Lucas had long-standing talks with Lawrence Kasdan, the famous screenwriter who had written Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Force Awakens, not long ago, and is just known as this kind of genius kind of guru, and said he'd been working on a Solo story for a long time. And George Lucas had said, yeah, we should put this together. So that's the background to all this. So he comes up with a script, writes it with his son Jonathan, and they bring on board, should I say Disney bring on board, what are their names? Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are famous for being these renegade guys who do, like famously did 21 Jump Street and the Lego movies. And they really have this skill, very modern eye, to take something which everyone kind of knows and then twist it in a way which makes it seem new, but also kind of meta comments on the product itself, especially the Lego film. If you've seen that, where it breaks the fourth wall, the fifth wall, really, by the end. So when that was announced, everyone went, wow, this is kind of crazy, especially for a Solo story, which kind of, the two didn't kind of mesh. But so everyone was really looking forward to it. The film got shot. Principal photography was finished. You can count on one hand how many times this has ever happened. It maybe happened a lot in the 30s, but not nowadays. They look at the footage and they go, this will not work. Kathleen Kennedy, who's head of Star Wars universe, sacks them. brings on board Ron Howard, journeyman director, whether you like Howard or not. I love some of his earlier films. I don't think he's been good for a long time, but he knows they've brought him in. They know he can get the job finished. It'll look good. It'll make sense. So they bring him on board. He reshoots 70% of the film. This is now the most expensive Star Wars film ever. It's like in the 250 million vicinity. And he shoots from Kasdan script, and that was where I suspect there was a problem. Kasdan script is very conservative, and I think Lord Miller probably was shaking it up, taking chances, and I think when they saw the footage, they just went, how are we going to stitch this together? So we get what I saw the other day, Solo, and wow, this is a clunky film. Now, this is what I was saying to everyone before. If you just love that kind of thing where Han, eventually meets Chewie, and how did that ever happen? That's there. How did Han famously do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs? That's there. How does he meet Lando? That's there. All that, which is all in the trailer. So, that part is all there, but the way they do it is so clunky that if you're the kind of person who turns their brain on and goes, well, that doesn't make sense, or that just doesn't seem real or genuine, then you're going to have a real problem with this film. And so I think it depends where you are. It might also depend on your view. Like if you hated Last Jedi because it was breaking all the rules of Star Wars, then I actually think you'd love Solo. It's so conservative. It's like it's like a 1960s film. So it'll be interesting to see where people finally find their feet with all this. Some nuts and bolts stuff. I think the cast is pretty good. Alden Ehrenreich plays Harrison Ford. He does not do a Harrison Ford impression or a Han Solo impression. He just tries to capture that, jauntiness that Solo has. And I think he's done no favors by the script. But by the last third of the film, I thought that Ehrenreich is pretty good. And I'd have no problem with him, if they ever make other films, that he's young Han Solo. I think he's not too bad. Emilia Clarke plays Qi'ra, who's kind of the other young protagonist. And I think Emilia Clarke is really quite bad. When you consider how good she is on Game of Thrones, so she can act, she looks completely lost. And I don't know if that's because the direction in which the film went. There's a lot of question marks about what this film would have looked like if it was Lord Miller film, and are there bits in between that don't work, and Emilia Clarke's definitely one of them. Lando Calrissian is played by Donald Glover, and if you've heard me talk about Donald Glover on Atlanta, Saturday Night Live, when he plays Childish Gambino, This Is America, this is an artist. Like, he is really at the top of his game. And he's just charisma overload. He steals his scenes, but and the film gets better when he comes into it. But he's not the game changer, which I think we all thought he would be. But he's definitely pretty good. Funnily enough, I think the best person in the film might be Woody Harrelson as Beckett, who kind of puts. This is really just a series of heist scenes, and he's kind of like the main guy. And I think Harrelson does really good work. Now, the problem is, I'm listing all these people which are a bit more interesting than Han Solo. Now, if you think back to Star Wars, when everyone got out of Star Wars, no one wanted to be Luke Skywalker. They probably wanted to be a Jedi. Everyone loved Han Solo. Everyone wanted to be Solo. And when you get out of this film, you probably want to be Lando. And so that's a major problem. Generally, look, there's a lot of other. Paul Bettany plays the main villain, and I actually think he's really good because Paul Bettany's been so buttoned down in all his other roles, especially as Vision. To see him have a bit of fun was really, really good. Generally, the cast is very, very good. We're going to talk in spoilers about some other things, but look, as I said, this film is it's got some problems. I'll discuss them in spoilers. But if you just want a fun film with the family, it's pretty good. I'll come back in a second. So one of the things that I didn't mention in my first part there was the film looks really, really good. And I think that's what you get when you get Disney, Star Wars, and Ron Howard. So the film looks great. I just wanted to point that out because probably the two main scenes which really, really are fun are the train robbery scene, and also there's the fight scene right at the end of the film. And it's really nicely choreographed and some good work. The camera moves a little bit. Paul Bettany gets to ham it up, and they're really quite good. Now that's the good. The bad is there's bad all over. One of the worst scenes that I've seen, for a very long time. You'd have to go back to like Alien Prometheus or Covenant for scenes of this caliber. When I'm laughing just even talking about how horrible it is. So it's now going to be infamous. This is how bad this scene is. So Han Solo has to join the Empire to get away from the criminals who are hunting him. And he goes to sign up, which actually would be interesting. Imagine a film which is Top Gun, Han Solo going to pilot school. I'd go and see that film. But we all know famously he gets kicked out because he won't follow orders. He, does it his way. But anyway, he goes up and this guy goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Han." And he goes, "What's your people's name, i.e. your surname?" Whatever. He goes, "I got no people." And the guy actually, this is a real scene. Guy goes, "Okay, Solo, because you're by yourself." Get it? Now, what we talk about sometimes in films is, especially with prequels, sequels, films about property which already exists, is asking a question and the satisfaction of that question being answered. The problem is no one asked that question. I never thought Han Solo actually meant anything. I just thought it was a cool space name, same as no one ever went, "Hey, Luke, you really seem to be able to walk well in outer space. You're like a Skywalker," or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or anyone. It's just really bad storytelling. It gets back to my earlier point. What the hell was Lawrence Kasdan thinking? This guy's a genius. He wrote Raiders, which is one of my handful of perfect films. That scene is just so bad. And there's a lot of scenes like that. The scene in which, this is how Han got his blaster. This is how Han learned to shoot first. This is how Han did the Kessel Run. Now the problem is, you want a little bit of fan service in there, but wow, this is bad. And the problem is, it's got to be better than anything else we've seen. So the Kessel Run scene is nicely shot, but it's not as good as the asteroid scene in Star Wars. So if you're going to do something, it's got to be at least better. The scene doesn't, make any sense at all. So this is the problem you've got. If you do start to think of all these kinds of things, the film just falls apart very quickly. And you're going to see a lot of reviews which are like 1 star because that guy or woman or whoever went, no, you can't have these storytelling faults. If you ignore them, then it's kind of just a fun film and you'll see a 3.5. Now, when I rated, I gave this 3 stars because I turned off my brain while watching it and I kind of enjoyed it, and I love Han Solo. But yeah, you could rip this apart quite easily. Other themes in the film. Well, the big shocker, let's talk about the spoiler, is at the end of the film, you find out that the head of the Crimson, what are they called? I can't remember now, the Crimson League or something, the kind of like the mafia, are actually headed up by Qi'ra reports in, and you see Maul there, Darth Maul. Now, I don't know about you, but I was completely confused as to how Darth Maul was there, because if you've watched the pre-trilogy films by George Lucas, Darth Maul is killed. He's cut in half and falls down a kind of huge chute. Like, he is not coming back. He came back. He somehow, I don't know, cauterized half his body. You can't really see it, but in the film, he's kind of got robot legs, and yeah, it's complete. And he's Maul now, not Darth Maul, so he's not part of the Sith bureaucracy. I don't know how you leave. Anyway, he's now just like a criminal overlord, and but he's still got the famous two-edged lightsaber, which is what I went, that can't be Darth Maul. Maybe it's just another one of his species, but he's got Darth Maul's thing. How can this happen? He died. It threw me completely out of the film, and I had to do some research after to find this out. So this film is actually surprisingly set after the third film in the pre-trilogy, but before New Hope. And I thought it was way earlier. But it kind of makes sense. It's probably 10 years before you see Han in Star Wars. So that's just ridiculous, and I thought I'd better explain that. As I said, it's got some nice scenes, some nice choreography, lots of bad scenes. The main problem is storytelling-wise, this film has a major problem, and that is a film should show a character arc. So we know Han Solo at the beginning of Star Wars, A New Hope, is a cynical smuggler. He doesn't want to help anyone. He just is looking out for himself. Now, at the beginning of this film, he's an idealist who, although he's grown up, kind of like, this kind of Oliver Twist kind of world, has been able to learn a lot of skills, but he still, wants to help people. And that isn't the guy we see at the end. So you need to take him from idealist so that at the end of this, he can't trust anyone, which they kind of try to do, and that he's the kind of guy who'd shoot first, which he does. But they don't quite get there. And I horribly suspect the reason why they don't quite get there is because they thought this will do really well and they'll make another Solo film, and that will get you to the jaded, cynical person who we meet at the beginning of Star Wars. It's bad storytelling, and it treats your audience with contempt, and I really don't know what Kasdan was thinking. You could have made a really interesting film here about a totally different film in which Solo starts some other way or whatever and ends up really jaded and really cynical, and that would have been a very interesting film, but we don't get that film. So look, that's it for today. I could keep ripping it apart, but look, it's kind of fun, and there are some fun scenes. And oh look, last thing I just wanted to mention, and I need to look at her name, it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge, plays L337. And the interesting thing about that is she leads kind of like this robot who's saying androids should have rights as individual, human rights kind of thing. And she leads kind of this revolt and forms this part of the story, and it's quite interesting because Lando really likes her. But it does, again, talk about bad storytelling. Because of that, she says androids should have rights. She leads a revolt, she gets injured. They then download her into the Millennium Falcon. She's trapped there forever. She's in hell. It's horrible. A horrible storytelling, horrible ending. And it also means that every time you've seen an android throughout all the Star Wars films, they're slaves. That's what it's saying. It's retconning that really there's a slavery problem in the whole of Star Wars, which is alluded to every now and again, but I don't know, I thought that was a bit disturbing, and I don't think they really thought that through. Okay, that's it for today. So many films coming. I got too much stuff actually, and I got to sort out what's the best stuff to talk about. Please, if you like this, subscribe so you always know when my stuff is up. tell other people, share it. That would be great, because the more people see it. I'm on Twitter at Guru Eden, and I'll hopefully talk to you soon. Okay, bye.